Open the podcast bay door as hell.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 136 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. I've been a proud geek all my life, being into role-playing games, board games, sci-fi, fantasy, and especially superheroes and comics. And I want to help others join me in those pursuits, but I found that sometimes people can get overwhelmed or feel left out because they don't already have what some consider the requisite knowledge to be considered a fan. And that's where Welcome to Geektown comes in. Here you can ask your questions without feeling like a gatekeeper is calling you out for not yet being fully versed in every aspect of your new interest. As I just mentioned, I want to make Welcome to Geektown feel like a safe space. It's in the name. I'm welcoming you. However, I got a letter from a listener, who prefers to stay anonymous, who took umbrage with a term my guests and I used during the She-Hulk deep dives, especially the final episode, and felt that I was being too divisive to still be welcoming. As it happened, I was scheduled to talk to my friend and longtime comics retailer, Carla Hoffman, for an upcoming podcast she's working on about the show Gotham. When that gets closer to release, I'll give you details on that. I asked her if she wouldn't mind me reading the letter to her and discussing it in particular and other related topics, and she readily agreed. Here now is that conversation. So, basically, there's a lot of talk about, although they're not specifically named as such, my guests and I referred to them as incels.
Yes.
And I got an email from a listener after my latest episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to read it to you. And do you have much experience with incels in your store or in your life?
Yes. In my general life, and as a case study, as something I have to know for my career. Yeah.
Okay. So let me just read you what he wrote, and then I'd be curious to have your reaction to what he said and to incels in general.
Gotcha.
So, I have a challenge with this week's episode. I'm really tired right now, so please take my words with the appropriate amount of salt, but here goes. I could be mistaken, but in my mind, the philosophy of Welcome to Geektown is a lot about education without fear. About creating a safe space to love what you love and learn more about it, in which name-calling isn't okay. Even if it's someone you don't particularly like, or whose opinions you feel are wrong or evil. Pointing a finger at an individual or group and calling them a name that literally means you are incapable of getting laid and you're pissy about it, just doesn't fit in your show. Or at least I thought it didn't. I mean, hell, we geeks are notorious for not being able to get laid. It's one of the defining characteristics for the word to those who don't identify with it. You'd think making fun of people for that exact thing in order to, quote, get them where it hurts, end quote, would be a major issue for the mayor of our town. When you take a stand that talking things through together is better than name-calling, and then repeatedly use the word incels, you lose integrity points. Stereotyping, grouping people together and calling them insulting names, and generally divisive behavior is what I thought the show was supposed to be about stopping or preventing. Don't get me wrong, as far as I can tell, I hate every single thing the people you were referring to with that word stand for and believe in. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm only halfway through the episode and had to talk myself out of unsubscribing. So,
So,
here are my basic thoughts on that.
yeah.
I've seen a lot of comic strips and cartoons and just general discussion about tolerating the intolerant. Like, there's a famous story about a guy who's sitting at a bar and another guy comes in and sits down at the bar and orders a beer. And the bartender looks at him and says, "Nope, get out." And the guy's like, "Well, I'm just sitting here. What's the problem?" "No, you get out." And the guy leaves. And so the first guy says, "Oh, what happened there? What was the problem?" And he's like, "No, he had an Iron Cross. He was a Nazi." And that's how they work. They will come in and one of them will be a reasonable guy, and as long as if you accept that guy, then he'll bring a friend, and before you know it, you are a Nazi bar. And so you have to stop them here. You have to stop them now. And so my feeling on incels is that same sort of thing. They are so intolerant of others that I have no problem calling them out as a group because they identify as incels. So I have no problem calling out incels as a group and saying, "No, you are the wrong kind of fan. We don't want you. Get out." So that was my basic feeling on it. And because incels, by their nature, are misogynistic, I mean, that's kind of part of their thing, is they say they're involuntarily celibate, which means they place all of the blame on women. And so I definitely wanted to get a perspective of a woman as well on what incels mean to you, what kind of experience you've had with them, and whether or not, you think, I don't want you to say if you think I'm right or he's right or anything, but just in general, what is your feeling on the subject?
Okay, here's the deal. Like you said, incel stands for involuntary celibate. The name originally came from a woman's blog talking about her experiences in the dating scene. And it was a much more inclusive term before a certain type of people, a stereotype, one might say, got a hold of it. Now, in the same way that you can't judge all furries
Correct.
by the stereotype of furries, I would say also you cannot judge an incel by this stereotype of what your brain conjures in the collective social conscious of what that term means. I
Okay.
don't think using the word incel is a slur. I believe it is, as you said, this is particularly describing a very type of people who do blame women and the outside world, or their own genetics, or their bone structure, or what kind of blood type they are. I mean, it gets really deep. It's not just a side of misogyny. There's a lot of self-hatred and a lot of self-ununderstanding and hopelessness that comes with being involuntarily celibate and aligning yourself with that crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So my big question is, did you say it as a slur? A slur means a slur is a word that you cannot use in public because it demeans somebody or a group of people and paints them under the same brush and is a particularly derogative word. Now, incels are a people. They are involuntary celibate, people who want to have sex but are not having sex. There's a recent New York Times article talking about the loneliness of men and how people should be entitled to sex and all the nonsense that comes with that. But anyway, getting off of that subject,
Mm-hmm.
you can be, just as you said, you could be a good Nazi. You could have beliefs that you feel that you are unjustly not having sex, whether that's with a woman or a man, honestly. I mean, that term fits so many different things. It's a very generic term. What I believe your friend is complaining about is the implication.
Okay.
Again, not all furries are bad, but if you talk about furries on the internet, people will conjure up the social construct of a negative image of a furry. Nobody just goes, oh, those are guys who like animals, cartoonish animals. They will conjure up more depraved things because that's where most people either were first introduced to them, or that's the legend and lore of the furry online.
So, did I use incel as a slur? I definitely didn't use it as a compliment.
Oh yeah, but it's a noun. It's a noun.
It's
It's a
you know
descriptive. It's an adjective.
but it's also, at least according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, it's also a hate group.
I think that's a terrible way to organize them because it came from such an inclusive place back in the day.
It did, but language changes.
Language does change.
And the way that I have been introduced to the term incel and the experience that I have had and that my friends have had with self-proclaimed incels is one of misogyny, negative interactions. And so is it possible that I lump too large a group under this name?
Yeah.
Yes, that is possible.
That is possible. Also, it is intention. I can call you a dirty, rotten tomato, and now tomato cake's on a negative connotation. So if you are out there decrying all incels are terrible and they don't belong in comic book spaces and they need to get out or else they're like Nazis. If that's the analogy you're making, oh my God. Yeah, like I would.
Well, at the very least, the ones that act the way that the characters were portrayed in She-Hulk. If you watch that final episode,
yeah, that's a misogynist group.
Yes, the intelligentsia
is a misogynist group.
Are a misogynist group, and I think fall in the incel umbrella.
Nope. None of them complained about not getting laid.
Okay.
They were misogynists. None of them said, I am involuntary celibate. I am not having sex with women, and that's why I'm mad at them. Nobody expressly stated that, so I don't think calling them incels really works. I think just misogynists. I think calling them incels is trying to give them a motive. Some people just hate women, and that's an evil that we have to live with. And the more you recognize that, instead of giving them excuses like, oh, they're just mad. If they had sex, they'd be a lot happier. No, these people would not be happier. They are misogynists. They do not like women encroaching onto what they consider men's spaces. Just like your friend in that email said that most geeks could be considered incels, or the term geek, or the group of geeks,
right?
Are known for not getting laid. As a woman and as somebody who has a child and a wonderful husband, I take really dark umbrage with it. I will write him a strongly worded email. How dare he? No, and again, words change. There was a day when Revenge of the Nerds was the stereotypical idea of what a nerd is.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, nerds are in charge of a lot of stuff. We've become part of the hierarchy. We are no longer the minority. Our movies are making stupid gangbusters. People know who Captain Marvel is. Like, that used to be secret knowledge. That used to be just for us. We have broadened. So I don't think saying that, oh, they're just geeks and don't get laid is a way to go about things. In the same way, oh, those were just incels and that's why they hate women. No, you can just hate women and have a lot of sex, and the two things can meet.
Okay. I definitely see your point on that. And yes, they never used the term incels in the show.
Yeah. And none of them complained about not having the sex. None of them complained about not having the sex. They were just mad women existed.
Okay.
And were very fragile about their masculinity because a strong woman was able to send them into this huge tizzy where they had to destroy her. So if you want a motive, it's the fact that they were all very fragile in their own sense of self, that cause this to happen. Masculinity is a difficult thing to define. I understand some people have a very tenuous grasp on it.
Okay. It's possible I was wrong about using that term.
Yeah.
If I was, that was not my intention.
Well, of course not.
But again, my personal experience and most of my friends' experiences, especially my female friends, incels are misogynists. Maybe not all misogynists are
Misogynists are
incels.
incels. There you go.
And incels is such a common term to use.
Yeah, but get better at language. Use misogynists. Men who hate women. That's pretty. Or women who hate women. I mean, misogyny goes everywhere. That's just the term of it. In the same way, racism is racism. You dislike people on regards of their race. So that goes for everything.
And I guess another reason that I used the term incels is because so many of the sentences they said when they were saying things like, oh, there's a She-Hulk, we don't say there's a He-Hulk. And many of these things are direct quotes from Twitter users and such, from lots of social media
man, I love that.
Are people who identify as incels.
Yeah, but that's, again,
and so
you can't go to every single comment and go do this. No, they hate women. And a better term might be men's rights activists.
Okay.
Not to paint everybody who is a men's rights activist with the same brush, but people who take it super serial tend to have a men's rights above all over the situation. Now, mind you, there are men's rights activists out there who are simply talking about suicide rates, loneliness, what masculinity means in the modern age, and want men to have rights like being able to take care of children and having equal custody of children in these kind of things. Some of them have a very positive thing, but there are that select group that is louder than the minority or the people who are trying to do the work for good. So I think men's rights activists might be better than incel, because incel is a lot squishier a term. Like I said, a lot of these guys believe that they'll never get laid because their face is wrong, and they need to get plastic surgery because their chin is the wrong shape. This is eugenics. This is less of women hating and more of like selective breeding stock and nonsense.
Well, and like you said, self-hatred.
Yes.
I guess I've just seen so much crossover between those groups.
It's all interpollinating.
That maybe I used the wrong term for this group. But in general, calling them out, if I used a different term, misogyny. I still think...
men's rights activists. They're still bad people.
I still think calling these people out and saying, you're wrong. And so I wasn't using incel to say, haha, you can't get laid. That wasn't the intention of using the word incel. It was the people that I've heard talk like this identify as incels. And so that's why I'm putting that label on them, just to identify the group. And so I still think that calling that group out, whether it be under the name of men's rights activist or incel or misogynist, whatever the most appropriate term is, I think calling them out and saying you aren't part of my group is still the right thing to do.
And you have the beauty of being able to clear your space and who comes in and out of this. You are indeed the mayor of Geektown, and you can set the laws. As a woman who works in retail, who finds a lot of these people, I need to make a living. I can't say, hey, I don't agree with your... If you come into the store and you're complaining that Ms. Marvel is
woke,
Pakistani, if you complain about woke stuff in the store, I'm going to go, okay, let's get you another book, because I need to sell books. And let's face it, not every book is for everybody. I mean, I could complain a lot about Scooby-Doo books and say they're not targeted to my audience. That's, that's what that is.
Yeah.
No poop. So while declaring those people wrong, bad, and immediate cut off ties like a Nazi isn't a possibility for me. And Lord knows, in my 20 years of comic book retail, I've gotten everything under the sun. I've gotten people who want to be my boyfriend. I've gotten people who think they are my boyfriend because they see me on a regular basis and know my first name. I've gotten people who complain loudly to me about just women being in comics and that she looks like a man and all sorts of other stuff. I get people who blatantly ignore me and go and talk to my male employees for comic book advice, even though honestly I've been reading comics longer than they've been alive.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's because I have a callus now that I'm like, well, that's just, I have to live with that. What I can do is make sure we're a welcoming store to everybody else. I can't ostracize those people because I work retail. But I can say that Metro sells so many comics to women that the majority of our customer base is women. I know that we are a queer friendly and we are an open store to pride, and we don't discriminate against anybody. It's always very exciting when we get people from other countries in the store because Santa Barbara is a tourist town and tends to get a lot of European and all sorts of other kinds of tourists. It's always really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We make sure that we have accessible comics as much as possible and make sure that when the right people come in, they are happy. And when the wrong people come in, well, they can get their book and go home. I won't indulge them. I won't say, hey, you're right, totally, go buy this book. I will say, that's your opinion, man, and it tends to work. I don't engage. That's what they want. They especially, oh, Lord. Okay, I don't even know if you're going to put this in, but like, we had a Trumper come into the store, and she was decked out. She had the hat, she had the buttons, she had the shirt, she had the pants.
Yep.
I mean, dear God, she was so decked out. And she came into the store and she looked so smug, like, ha ha, look at me. I'm in the store with the young people. Ha ha ha. Ah, take that, liberals, I exist. And so she did. She existed in our store. And when I asked her if she needed any help, she said, no, I just come here because I like comic books. And I'm like, cool. I enjoy comic books as well. Here's our new issues. Here's our back issues. Here's where the trades are kept. I was friendly. I was polite. And eventually, she didn't get the reaction she wanted. Somebody wanted to cause a scene. That's why you wear all that merch. That's why you do that in public.
She wanted to own the libs.
Yeah, she was ready to own libs in the store by causing a huge fuss and getting online and being, oh, look at me, I'm cool. You don't engage with these people. You say, thank you for coming in. Here's the basic information you need. If you want to tell me your comic book opinion, I will go, that's just your opinion, man, and move on with my life. And if you don't engage, and if you don't try to fix them, not everybody's worth saving, guys. Not some people are just so indulged in their beliefs that a comic book employee at a random day isn't going to like magically save their life and change them to be a better person. That's got to take years and work. I get minimum wage, guys. Like I don't have time to fix your problems. But no, I think that's the way that is best dealt with them. Do you feel creepy? Have there been some times when I've had to go file in the back and hide when there's somebody in the store that is a little too friendly or somebody I should not have to deal with?
Yep.
Your coworkers know I'm really cool to work with great people. The owner of the store is a big, imposing dude who's very tall. His name is Bob, and he doesn't put up with that shit. And I'm really lucky. So I know not everybody's lucky. I know some people have even more freedoms that they can just say, get out of the store. We don't want you here. But in the mid-ground here, just leave them alone. Nobody wants them. They don't want them. And I do appreciate that there's now an official superhero for bad internet takes. I'm so glad She-Hulk used literal live, like they had to have been live tweets. They felt like they were written. It felt like it was pulled right from that day's Twitter and put a huge fucking spotlight on it because they knew when they were making that series, oh, they're coming.
Yeah.
People are going to be mad that this is not only a funny show where not a lot of manly explosions and sky beams happen, but we have a female lead who's going to talk about lady things like dating and stuff that guys don't like. She's not talking about pickup trucks and barbecue, for heaven's sakes. What are we supposed to do with this? Putting a spotlight on those guys, making them a villain, and calling them out. Abomination had to own up to his responsibilities. She-Hulk's like the patron saint of women online now. Captain Marvel fights space. Ms. Marvel has her own issues. She's a modern-day Spider-Man, and She-Hulk's there when you're online and you get an ugly email from some dude who thinks you're fat or gross, or we don't want you selling us comics because you're a lady and have lady bits, bleh. You have a superhero for that now. And I think that is genius.
Like I said, I felt that, and my guests felt comfortable saying that they are the villains, both in the show and in real life, and that they should not be supported in any way. And that was my intention. And like I said, I wanted to call out the danger of tolerating the intolerant.
Yes, agreed.
So I want to make sure that they do not feel accepted in my group.
Misogynists shouldn't be. Misogynists like being a racist. I mean, it's all coming down. Again, you can quibble on the language and the technicalities and all that, but really, we know you. You don't like misogyny. You don't want to welcome misogynists to your group. Who knew? And water is wet and the sky can be blue, except in Gotham where it's constantly gray. At best, if not raining.
Yes. All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with me about this and helping me to clarify and to get my thoughts out and get a response back. So thank you for that. I want to thank the letter writer for taking the time to reach out to me. Basically, my response boils down to this. While I only mention gatekeepers specifically in the opening of the show, when I describe the concept of Welcome to Geektown to others, I say that it's a safe space away from gatekeepers and other toxic fans. And the people we refer to in these She-Hulk deep dives who were so brilliantly parodied and mocked by the show are the exact type of toxic fans I'm referring to. And I want to make it absolutely clear that I do not approve of their words and actions, and that I do not welcome them in my space, because they make it unsafe for the great majority of fans. While I may not have used the exact correct term in this case, I do believe that misogyny, racism, and other beliefs of that nature should not be tolerated and are open to be mocked, dismissed, and otherwise called out. And that was my intention when using the words I did. Thank you for listening to this special episode. I'll be back next week to do another Marvel show deep dive. Just one episode, which should tell you exactly what I'm covering. And then I return to regular listener questions. If you have a geeky topic you'd like to hear more about, or, like the listener from this episode, take umbrage with something I've said and would like my response, I'm open to hearing any and all thoughts. You can email me at welcometogeektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or you can go to the website, welcome to, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com, and click the Submit a Question link, and simply leave the email field blank to leave your comments anonymously. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcometogeektown or Twitter @geektownpodcast. Also, if you'd like to support the show directly, come join the Patreon at patreon.com/welcometogeektown for just $1 per month to get access to full scripts of the shows, audio outtakes, and a monthly shoutout. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show so we can all tell them,
Welcome to Geektown. Population, us.
Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Onstead. Theme music is by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Santana. All other sound clips are the copyrighted material of their respective owners, and no infringement is intended, falling under fair use.